The only good is knowledge. The only evil is ignorance. I remember learning with great difficulty that most everyone is not mentally equipped to access the ultimate truth, and that because of this, life here in this realm would inevitably denigrate into mass artificiality from womb to tomb, as life lived in truth is the only means by which we harvest fruit. A life void of truth is a life discordant to God, to Source, to the very magic of creation itself. I'll never forget when it all clicked. I immediately felt a ravenous desire to share these pearls with the whole of the world because surely everybody is on a quest for truth in this world of obvious lies, right? Only not even slightly. I deliver with force, most want it served lightly, politely, but the truth hits like lightning. It was rather frightening to discover most people, albeit preaching their quest for truth sermons, were actually quite terrified by it. I began to see that the enemy has systematically groomed humanity that way, as when I peeked into the enemy's camp, I shuddered to discover all my friends were imprisoned there. Marxist mind programming uses the method of ideological subversion through demoralization as stated by a former KGB informant, Yuri Bezmenov. This method ensures that the person who has been utterly debased will no longer be able to access true intel. In fact, this psychological manipulation defaults one into their beast consciousness through immoral coding that stunts one's intellectual capacity. This is why the enemy's tactics are always to heavily debase a nation. This is why most people are porn and sex addicted, who literally hold no desire for truth as long as their carnal desires are satiated. This psyop enslaves the mass mind, whilst recruiting useful tools to bypass the enemy's evil crimes. What we have here is recipe for disaster. A populace who is so fogged in mind that they cannot decipher good versus evil, and therefore, they blindly side with evil. Remember, the only good is knowledge. The only evil is ignorance. I remember first posting about the noble wolf. I had friends literally reach out in disgust over my direct approach in disseminating truth. Meanwhile, weeks before, they posted a black square. Unbeknownst to their own ignorance, this black square was a symbol of a demonic regime that they unknowingly pledged their allegiance to. How many of these same people made a post in support of BLM? And not because they knew anything of the organization, but because they are tethered to the hive that sent a pulse through the interweb, alerting them of their duty to the service of the enemy. Blindly signing on the digital line, confirming support to an organization that openly supports white genocide, the castration and mutilation of our youth through radical trans ideology, late-term abortion, the over-sexualization of our youth, pedophilia, SRA, NCP. But I'm the bad guy for exposing the inversions of truth in history, revealing the truth of the man who fought against this evil mind disease, the ultimate scapegoat for the enemy, a man of pure benevolence, and really much more than a man. He who came forth to save us from such depraved travesties. But in that time, so few could see. It was then that I felt the gravity of the situation at hand. People have forgotten the force of God. Therefore, they cannot recognize the act of one, because they have become victims to an age that has convoluted all everything. And now they live under the most wicked curse, believing that good is evil and that evil is good. And now I'd like to read some relevant passages from Savitri Devi's Gold in the Furnace. And I quote, "Age after age, when justice is crushed, when evil rules supreme, I come. Again, I take birth on earth to save the world." The Bhagavad Gita. Gods, divinely inspired supermen, are not born on earth every day, nor every century. And when they do come and live and act in their miraculous manner, not every man, not every nation recognizes them. Blessed is the nation who follows to the bitter end the divine men born in her midst, and who, whether in victory or disaster, clings to their spirit. That nation will triumph over the forces of death in the long run and thrive in beauty, strength, and joy, while the rest of the ungrateful world lies in waste at her feet. Much like the Aryan solar goddess Savitri Devi, I've often sat with the weight and the knowingness that cursed is a nation who does not recognize its heroes, as in failing to do so leads to the absence of such a necessary force of change that only a man outside of time can bring. Oh, the irony of people preaching theology while simultaneously demonizing divinity. Oh, the wretched curse of this inverted reality designed by the enemy. And to reverse this curse, we got to reverse the inverts. It's simple, really. Just remember, A, everything that is esteemed as good and progressive on the world stage is demonic subversion to enslave the mass mind. B, whomever the enemy says is the enemy is actually the hero of humanity. C, any enemy of the enemy is your friend, with exceptions. As last but not least, much is trickery in the land of deceit. Snakes in the grass will play on your team, but really be working for the enemy. You can only clearly access the truth of a being when you are purified in mind, body, and soul. A key to this success is chastity, the Knight's Code. To understand the fight, one must understand your very spirit's plight. The plight of the solar hero Lucifer is the plight of every Aryan, a benevolent light bearer framed as the Dark Lord. A most twisted circumstance as only good can defeat evil. So if good is seen as evil by the masses, we suffer in quite the conundrum. So you can see why the enemy has worked overtime at subverting true gnosis, fogging the mass mind, disabling them from deciphering with their own senses good versus evil. Remember, the greatest trick the devil ever played was not convincing you that he did not exist. It was convincing you that God was the devil and the devil was God. This is the subversive methodology that ensures evil to reign the age, as a slave who does not realize he is in chains will never seek to free himself. A palpable quote by Ursula Haverback. A political prisoner, an intellectual seer who risked all to preserve the torch of truth. Much like Rudolf Hess, Ezra Pound, Knut Hamsun, Alfred Rosenberg, Leon Degrelle, and many, many more. The Aryan antipodes who courageously fought against the anti-seed, all exiled, imprisoned, hung, left to rot in insane asylums under extreme conditions, all because they were the pure ones who can decipher good from evil. As the very objective of the enemy is and always has been to destroy God, to convolute the living truth to such an extent that it has many cursing God whilst praising the Antichrist. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. May you bear this in mind when you are crucified for it.